Okay. Why don't we do a roll call and get this party started? Okay.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Okay, why don't we stand up and we'll salute the flag?
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The notice of the noted requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law for this meeting has been satisfied. A copy of the notice having been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Coaster and filed in the office of the Township Clerk on July 26, 2022. Emergency notice: there is an emergency exit through the courtroom doors and two exits at the rear of the room. No smoking. No cases will be started after 10:30 p.m. and no testimony taken after 11 p.m. Notice all meetings will be video and audio taped and shown on the Township of Ocean Community Cable Channel 22 on Verizon Fios, and Channel 77 Cablevision. All cell phones must be turned off, or if you need to make a call, please make your call outside the meeting room. Okay, so I'm gonna be the chair today. Dr. Benedetto is still out, and so he'll be back hopefully soon. A couple of things I'd like to make, a couple of resolutions and get a vote on this. A couple of resolutions to memorialize Paul and Marjorie Edelson and Aiden Korish, those two cases. Can I get a...
Amy, everyone's eligible to vote on both of them, correct? Does anybody vote no on either?
Well, she goes through that and...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, but you could do it as one motion so that everybody could do the roll call. Otherwise, you have to do them as separate. But it sounds like everybody voted yes. You can do that as one motion for both resolutions.
Okay, so all in favor? Is that correct?
Well,
I make a motion, or make a
Can
motion
I get a
to
motion
approve.
to approve it?
I'll second.
And roll call.
Yes.
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 Okay, so the following cases are carried to April 24th, 2023. First French-speaking Baptist Church, and Alessandro Nascimento. Sorry for the pronunciation if I messed it up. Can I get a motion to carry those cases?
Without further notice, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, without further notice.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Great, thank you.
That can be an all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Great.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, just for the record, anyone who's interested in either of those two applications, First French-Speaking Baptist Church, which is located at 2795-2797 Asbury Avenue, and Alessandro Nascimento, which is 107 Adams Avenue. They're not being heard tonight. If you want to be heard on that application, you need to be here at 7:30 on April 24th, 2023. You will not receive any further notice. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we're going to hear two cases tonight. The first one we're going to hear is Township of Ocean, Block 2 of 219, Lot 19, 151 Logan Road, Ocean Zone R-4. There's an application to subdivide 125,501 square foot tract into 7 conforming lots, 6 buildings, and 1 for open space and stormwater basin.
All right, and Mr. Chairman, I have the following exhibits to mark into evidence. Exhibit A1 is the preliminary major subdivision dated December 8th, 2022. Exhibit A2 will be the stormwater management report dated December 8th, 2022. Then we have the following board exhibits. B1, as in Board 1, will be the board planner engineers report dated February 14th, 2023. Exhibit B2 will be the crime prevention officers report dated January 31st, 2023. Exhibit B3 will be the traffic safety officers report dated January 30th, 2023. And Exhibit B4 will be the fire marshal's report dated January 25th, 2023. Those are all the exhibits I have. Mr. Arbus, if you want to make your appearance.
Yes, Marty Arbus, Township Attorney for the applicant.
Thank you.
Great. So before we if it's okay, Counselor, before we hear any discussion from you, do you mind if we have our professionals kind of give us their thoughts on the matter?
I object.
Let me swear in our professionals. Do our professionals swear any testimony they'll give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help from God?
I do.
Thank you both.
Okay, so Jim Bennett, would you like to tell us a little bit about?
Actually, I'm disqualified on this application because it's the township's application and I'm the township's planner.
Okay,
So we have a.
okay,
So
Bennett.
our planner tonight is Mary Ann Bucci Carter from my office, and I can give our general project description and go through our report briefly. So the subject property contains one lot identified as block 216, lot 19. It's 127,501 square feet, about 2.93 acres. It's presently developed with a 2-story brick building along with 2 paved driveways along Logan Road and paved parking areas. The applicant seeking to approval to demolish and remove the existing improvements on the site and subdivide the property into 7 lots. 6 of the proposed lots are to be developed with single-family homes, while the 7th lot is proposed to be kept as open space with a stormwater basin. As part of the subdivision, a 50-foot right-of-way is proposed, which is identified as Parkview Court. And this proposed right-of-way complies with section 21-20.13 of the Township Land Development Ordinance. The property is surrounded by mostly residential and commercial zone to the south and southwest. It's generally a conforming subdivision. Generally conforming subdivision. I don't believe any variances are being requested at this time, and I'll leave it up to the applicant to go through their testimony, and I think going through the testimony, addressing our report, and I'd say at the end, if there anything that's still outstanding, I can bring that up.
Okay, great. All right, Mr. Arbison.
How is everybody doing? As he has just indicated, it's a fully conforming application. There are no variances being requested. It's 6 lots plus 1 lot as a drainage basin. Just 1 second, let me just ask him more. No, Councilman.
No, he's not.
So there are, the key to the thing, no variances. Some of you may be familiar with this property and some issues in the past. Frankly, I think this is a tremendous result that puts it in conformity with what's in the neighborhood now. The witness I have is Sam Avakian, and I'll ask that he be sworn and he can testify.
Mr. Vakian, do you swear any testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Could you give the board the benefit of your professional experience
Yes, sir.
and education?
Yes, sir. I graduated in 2012 from the New Jersey Institute of Technology with my Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering and Land Surveying. I've been a professional engineer for 5 years now, a professional land surveyor for 3 years, and a professional planner for about 1.5 years now.
Mr. Avakian, you can be testifying as both a planner and a engineer this evening?
Tonight will be an engineer, but if there is any planning testimony needed, I can provide it,
Okay.
yes.
Board, that's all I need from a legal perspective.
Okay.
I think that's all we usually ask
Great,
for.
great.
Okay.
Here, thank you.
Accepted. Okay, Mr. Avakian, you've reviewed these plans and the application?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why don't you give the board the benefit of what you're doing here, what we're doing?
Okay, do you want me to put it up on the...
Yeah, go ahead, put it up on the board if you have. The plans are 14 pages. Just refer to the page that you're putting up there. So
We'll put up the whole set of plans.
okay,
Sure.
so that's
This is marked in as Exhibit A1.
A1.
Is there a Geiger counter in this house? What's that noise? That's me.
tonight, is this on? Okay. Yeah, so tonight we're here seeking preliminary major subdivision approval for 1515 Logan Road. That's lot 19, block 216. Moving to page 3 of the construction plans.
And just to be clear, we're seeking preliminary approval at this time only, is that correct?
Yes, preliminary approval at time only, no final. On our existing condition plan, what you'll find is a 2.93 acre lot that is currently housed with a 18,500 square foot vacant brick building, 2 stories. We have approximately 335 linear feet of roadway frontage along Logan Road. Along with that are 2 concrete aprons that lead to access to Logan Road, followed by an impervious HMA driveway, which leads us to a bituminous parking lot. In the back area, we also have a existing bituminous area used, I believe, for recreation at the time. To the west and to the south of our lot, we have wetlands that have been delineated that are shown on our plan. Surrounding, Mr. Matlock mentioned surrounding, we have residential to our north, we have residential to our south, residential to our west, along with a multi-unit apartment complex to the west, and the southwest corridor is commercial zoned. Diagonally across the street, we have Park Boulevard, David DeRouge Park. In order for us to subdivide the lot, we have to demolish the existing brick building, along with all the impervious area, some street trees, and some vegetation along the south side. What we're proposing today is to take the lot and to subdivide it into 7 lots, all conforming. 1 lot will be open space, green, that will also house our basin. The other 6 lots will be a proposed single-family dwelling. All of the lots that you see, the footprint right now, are a generic footprint, and they may be altered in the future, but for right now, this is what we're showing for our maximum. All current lots are meeting our bulking requirement zoning standards, and just to touch on it, I know one of the comments was the garage. We're proposing that the garage is going to be attached, so there will be no accessory structures. We have a 30-foot wide roadway with a 50-foot wide right-of-way. What you'll see on revised plans, depending on what will happen tonight, is we will make the radius of the cul-de-sac to be 50 feet, and we'll expand the right-of-way. We will also be providing sidewalks around the entirety of the walk and Logan Road. Existing, we have 1.2 acres of impervious land, lot coverage, and currently with this application, we have 0.53, which gives us about a reduction of approximately 0.69, 7/10 of an acre reduction in impervious. All lot in the back, the rear lot, and all of the access way and the road, which also will be renamed, I know that's also a comment, and approved by Mayor and Council, all will be maintained and owned by the township itself. Moving on, so utilities, grading, and drainage. All lots will have public utilities, that's water, sewer, electric, cable. Everything will run, everything will be underground. As far as grading, we try to keep and mimic what's there existing. Everything on 90% of the lot itself is being graded to the rear, so that'll be to the west and to the south, to hit the wetlands, which is swaled down to a culvert on Logan Road and piped, and eventually makes its way down to Deal Lake Lollipop Pond. There is a portion of the easterly side that is graded to right to Logan Road. Continuing, we will be revising the plans to show a fence surrounding the basin. The fire hydrant in the rear of the property, the lot, will be moved to Logan Road, and in place in the back will provide street lighting.
In terms of moving the fire hydrant, that's consistent with the report you received from the fire marshal?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Along with the widening the radius as well, so I could maneuver the apparatuses. As far as our landscaping, we have a natural buffer to our west and south. We will be adding buffer trees and buffering along the north, and street trees along Logan Road and the roadway itself. We are asking for building perimeter landscaping that will be provided at the future owner's design, so we didn't provide landscaping in that such. I know in the engineer's report, and hopefully we'll get to discuss, in between the lots, we actually have our grading to be swaled in between the lots going out to the roadway, which is then going out to a cut curb, which is then going to our basin. We didn't put intermediate lot landscaping in that reason. We didn't want to have that. If it's necessary, we could provide landscaping there, but that was our idea, just not to intrude on the swale. So for myself,
Well, just to take a minute.
Sure.
So, Jim, did you want to make a comment about that? Or?
I can't.
Oh, that's right.
Ben-
I'm sorry.
Ben can,
I mean,
yeah,
Ben,
Ben can.
did you want to make a comment about that?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. It's landscaping between the lots is kind of a preference of the homeowner. How wide is the swale along the lots?
approximately 6 feet. So landscaping can be provided, and like you said, the homeowner wanted to do it. It's really down the center of the lot line where we were trying to stay away from it. If that's a request from the board, it can be added. It'll be we prefer not to, just so not to introduce this way.
So just to clarify, you said additional landscaping will be provided.
Surrounding the building, yeah. So
Okay.
just our conversation. I wasn't fully aware of that comment. I didn't know if that's what you meant, the building perimeter, because that will be provided, and in between the lots, we would prefer not to have it.
Okay.
And the report, the engineer's report, we are in full agreement with everything that the engineer mentions, and I believe that we comply. But I'm also more than available to answer any questions if there's anything that was missed.
So basically, all of the reports that are provided, and we have B1 through B4, we're going to comply with everything that has been requested, rename the street so it doesn't get confusing.
Yes, the street will be renamed. The street will be renamed at the future homeowners, the future owners will, and it'll have to go through the next council to be agreed.
And all of the items set forth in the engineer's report of February 14th will be complied with.
Yes.
Okay. Just in order here. So, Mark, we do public comment first, or our own questions first?
It's up to you, the board. If you have comments, you
Yeah,
can.
I think we can start the comments with us first. Anybody here have any questions, comments that they want to make at this time?
No. I have
Nope.
a couple, unless
Sure.
Mr. Beal does.
I know he kind of gave
I thought he was getting ready.
he gave us a head fake or something.
So, and Bennett knows this, and I'll start with Bennett, but Mr. Vaki, you can answer too. You know, this is my least favorite corner of town when it comes to flooding because it's still beyond the limit of survey of the FEMA flood zone. So, looking at the DEP, wetlands and delineation, do you have any concerns about how close those southernmost lots are to the water course?
Well, the plan shows the flood hazard area. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And the houses are outside of that.
Yes, sir.
So that's that's what we look for. And was an application made to the DEP for this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But it's still not showing on the FEMA flood maps, right?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so the FEMA flood maps, originally we had to go through, and this is also one of the comments, originally we had an LSRP go through because of the use. That reuse is no longer being provided, so with this, we actually rescinded that freshwater load. But what we have currently is due to the reduction in the impervious area, we're actually able to hold, which we have now, but hold and maintain in the basin all the stormwater runoff. That also treats water quality. The way we designed it is to have nothing intrusive to any of the neighboring lots, except for the one little portion that's down here, that's going at the Logan Road, but that's no more than it's ever been. From these swales, they actually naturally go to the culvert down here.
So my next question, go on.
So the swales go to a culvert down here, which is piped across Logan Road, which goes underneath Park Boulevard, David Rouge Park, goes around the south side, actually goes all the way down to Lime Pond, which then is the Finger Lake to Deal Lake. It's been going on like that for a long time. I grew up up that street.
Well, and that's what I'm asking. So that culvert, I mean, and it wasn't mentioned in any of the reports, but that culvert still floods, right? And it blocks traffic on Logan Road, which I was kind of surprised wasn't in the traffic report. How are you planning on addressing that? Because it is a significant problem in heavy rainstorms. And I know I am not the engineer here, but if you're grading everything towards that back in a very heavy rain event, what's going to keep it from spilling over and flooding that culvert?
So the first I'll just address that we did, like I mentioned, we reduced the impervious area by 7/10 of an acre, which is a large portion to this. So that opened up all the green space, which allows permeability into the ground naturally. The front portions of the homes on each side, their grading is to run off to the road, which is then graded back, which is then caught in the basin. So that basin's idea is to hold that water back before it's released into those swales. In the event, we have a 210 and 100-year storm event that we have reached, but in the event of a breach or something like that may happen, it won't go to swell. It's a better lot than it was as part of permeability, and that's really all I could say in regards to that. I do feel that the way we have it graded, we're not going to be adding any detrimental impact to that culvert.
Okay. Is there any plan in the future, though, and separate from this, maybe to upgrade that culvert for more capacity?
I would not know that.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
I have one other question. Is there a conservation easement on that basin property, or will it? Or is there going to be?
Yeah. So all of the back lot and the roadway is dedicated and owned and maintained by the township. So
Okay.
there's no HOA, and as such, the DPW or whomever they decide will maintain that basin, which is also nice to know because I trust that more than something else. And yeah, everything on that, including the garbage schedule, garbage will be scheduled how it normally is and what we'll pick up.
Okay.
Looking at the post-developed drainage area
Yes, sir.
plan, it has the basin area being on lot. I'm trying to see. You have it in the you have it in the rear property. It's hard to read.
What sheet are you saying?
Post-developed drainage area.
Yes.
Why did not bring my glasses today?
I got you. Sheet 14.
Sheet 14.
Yep, that's it.
So it has, you can see it on the right hand side. It has the basin area being captured, not in the rear corner, but in the second lot there. So can you just explain
Sure.
that and the difference?
Absolutely. So each of these areas we break down for our drainage report, and in the drainage report we kind of break down. So this is just completely green space. So that's why it's broken into its own area. That in itself is just holding just grass. Everything else is what will be running to the basin, what it was previously, how much impervious area, and what office space is there currently.
Anything else?
I have one other
Sure.
quick question. So, in the back of that property, in its state today, there are, for lack of a better term, desire trails that folks from the other side of the property have used to get to Dave DeRouche Park. Is there any thought of turning that into a trail so that the residents who live back there have easier access than going down and around? Not that it's that much further out of the way, but
I mean, those are currently wetlands. We really shouldn't be doing.
So no.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
just
there's
making
no-
sure.
But realistically, like if those are way that cross out,
Okay.
Okay. Are you satisfied with the answers? Okay. Anybody else on the board? Anybody from the community like to make a comment? Sure, come on up.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to swear you in. Do you swear any testimony you're about to give me be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And just state your name and give your address for the record.
Okay, Roy Larson, Larsen, and I am at 1517 Logan.
1517 Logan. Thank you.
Okay, so do I have to be careful between making comment or asking questions, or can I kind of?
It's okay. Just
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I don't have any problems, so I just wanted clarification. I've been living in that property for 38 years next door, so I'm very familiar with how the water has come and gone over the years. I actually own the creek behind my property. It's about 100 feet wide, and I have to maintain it, keep it clean and running. The creek behind 1515 is owned by 1515, I think almost in its entirety. And I think I heard the gentleman say the township will be maintaining the creek, meaning on a regular basis they'll be cleaning it out, getting the logs, the brush, the crap, whatever going in there, out of the creek. Because when that isn't done, and this has happened in the past, creeks bog up, they dam up, and the back end of my property, I call it the lower 40, floods. And that's what's created the swale that goes into property number 7 over here. So the way we can best alleviate possible future issues is keep that creek clean as possible. The water will flow, and as long as that creek is clean, I've never had a flooding problem. When it backs up, I have a flooding problem. So, and that flooding will go right into property 7 after it goes through mine. So that's a concern of mine. So if the township will maintain it, will they maintain mine as well?
I appreciate the effort.
That was the real question you had, right? That was the real question.
Okay, I have other questions, but not on the board.
Okay.
I think this is
I think this is probably the time. If you have a question.
He's
yeah.
our only witness.
I would
Yeah.
have one other question.
Sure.
The other concern I have is the property line that I have with next door actually goes of almost 400 feet. You know, the first 200 feet is shrubbery, trees, bushes, you name it, vines, you know, a mess. And then the back half is a fence. And I know from the plans, all the fencing is going to be demolished and taken down. And so my question is, how and who is going to determine what's going to replace the shrubbery or the property line? Because it's pretty bad right now. And it's next to impossible to know where it is. When you stand on Logan Road and you try to figure out 400 feet back on the other side of the creek, a lot of stuff belongs to 1515, a lot of stuff belongs to me. Are there guidelines about how close to the property line you want big trees to be, or viney bushes, whatever? You know, I'd like to have some insights into what the end goal is there, so I can know what my property line is going to
Yep.
look like.
So how does that work, Bennett? Is it whose responsibility is that to kind of
Well,
figure that out?
so I'm sorry, sir, is your property to the north or south?
North.
So they're proposing some additional landscaping along the rear of the homes that are back there. And then it's the homeowner's responsibility to maintain their property along that property line, the shared property line, once the project is complete and somebody else has moved in.
Right, so in theory, there could be no fencing there at all, if they choose not to have a fence.
Right.
All right, so before we get to that point, when the property is cleared and ready for construction and whatever landscaping that is going to go on there, how do I know where that property line is going to be? And is it going to be cleaned out on the 1515 side up to the property line, or is it going to be left as a overgrowth with trees that are, all over the place?
Well, the applicant's project is going to just stay on this property, on 1515. They unless there's some sort of agreement between you and the municipality, they won't encroach onto your property without permission to do any work. So that will all be, so anything on your side that is there will remain there.
Can I get some assistance in terms of knowing what's on my side of the property line?
Well, I mean, the only question is whether we could, is there somewhere we can mark the
if you know, so just speaking, I think the land surveyor now, this aside, so like Mr. Matlock mentioned, this property will be cleared. As far as your own corner, I just love, it doesn't show an iron pin, but if you hire a surveyor, they can set corners, they'll call them, and it'll be a monument. It might be a cat, a cat, it might be something, right? But they'll stay, we have the same survey, they'll stay on their property. And in regard to the shrubbery, they'll be clearing out all the township. Whatever shrubbery on your lot, you can go up your street line, no matter what it is. So if this is your property line, stick it over you, then so I think the biggest thing is to get a survey. Could something be put out there? They might be, have you looked in the area now? I know it's actually my office that did it, so I don't know. They probably put it.
It's alright if there's if there's a post here and there's another post 400 feet down the way,
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying that the
how do I'd like to have a line of intermediate posts, and I'd love to have a drop line that can just go all from
I
front
would,
to
I would
back.
say to hire, if you want something like that, you'd have to hire a surveyor, just to see the distance that location.
Or if I don't, then they're gonna do up to the property line.
So, exactly, a good rule of thumb is for you to go forward, is to know that all of that shrubbery, like the scrub trees and the little brush will be removed on this property. So
Because on
they
their
will
side.
not be encroaching on your property, so.
I'm fine with that.
No, for sure, but you just wanna use that as a bearing or
I mean, what if there's a tree that's like this wide and it's on your side of the property line? Is it going?
Most likely not. I mean, our whole plan is to try to stay away from taking down any type of vegetation that's, mature in that nature. But like I was saying, if it's over the property line, if it's on the property that's going to be hindering any of the development, it will be removed, yes.
Alright, so the shrubbery, which is the ugly stuff, I'd like to see that go.
Yep, let's go.
Now, if your guys did the survey,
I think we might be getting too much into,
we're in the.
yeah, we're in the weeds literally, yeah. I think the builder is responsible for making sure that they are not encroaching on your area, right? They are not encroaching on your area. So I think we kind of just have to work with that. And if you find that there is something other than that, then you probably have to call the town and kind of figure out what to do with that.
Yeah, if
Right.
you could just give me some assistance in knowing exactly where that line is, I can work with that.
Okay.
Alright, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Rob's good provider. I'll give him my card.
Okay. Good. You'll help him out. Great. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Okay. So no further comments by the board. No other testimony.
Make a motion
I'll
to
make
close
a-
the public.
Okay. Can I make a motion to? I'll make a motion to close the public section to this.
Second.
Okay. Well, we don't need to take a.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. Okay, so now, can someone make a motion to approve this?
I make a motion to approve what's on the floor.
Second. Yes.
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 Thank you very much.
Okay, great, thank you.
Take care.
Okay, case number 2, West Park 35 Developers LLC, Block 3, Lot 13 through 15 and 16.02, 2105 to 2107, NJSH 35 and 77 WPA, Oakhurst Zone C3 0-1/80. The applicant proposes to demolish the current vacant restaurant and construct a 4,694 square foot new restaurant, plus additional site improvements, including the parking areas.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Jennifer Krimko from Ansel Grimm and Aaron on behalf of the applicant. And as Mr. Weinstein indicated, we're familiar with this property. Those of us who've grown up here have seen many a different restaurant not survive in that location. And the proposal before you tonight is unique in that we are looking to connect this site with the Valley Bank site to give a restaurant an actual opportunity to survive by having access onto West Park Avenue also. I have my engineer here today. I have a representative from Outback as well as a traffic engineer. I'm hoping and pretty confident that Mr. Sharrow can successfully go through all of it and answer questions. So I wasn't intending to put anyone else up unless you had specific questions to direct to them.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Krimko.
Let me go through the exhibits that I have to be marked. Exhibit A1 will be the topographic survey dated September 12th, 2022. Exhibit A2 is the preliminary final site plan dated last revised March 10th, 2023. Exhibit A3 are the architectural plans dated December 15th, 2022. Exhibit A4 is the geotechnical investigation dated November 15th, 2022. Exhibit A5 is the drainage statement dated January of 2023. Exhibit A6, the traffic impact parking assessment dated December 20th, 2022. We then have the following exhibits from board exhibits. Exhibit B1 will be the board engineers report dated March 21st, 2023. Exhibit B2 will be the board planners report dated March 22nd, 2023. Exhibit B3 will be the fire marshal's report dated January 23rd, 2023. Exhibit B4 is the crime prevention officer's report dated January 19th, 2023. Exhibit B5 will be the traffic safety officer's report dated January 31st, 2023. And then the environmental commission's review dated March 24th, 2023 will be exhibit B6. That's everything I have.
Okay, great. Jim and Bennett, would you like to make some comments?
Let me swear them in.
Oh.
You swear, but both of you swear that any testimony you'll give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you?
I do.
I did.
Great. Thanks.
Mine's dated March 22nd. I will summarize where it's appropriate and read where it's appropriate, I think. I think Ms. Krimko basically explained the application. The whole purpose of the application is to connect the two sites and allow traffic to go through from West Park Avenue to the restaurant and to leave, more importantly, leave the restaurant to go out to West Park Avenue instead of having to go all the way north on the highway and go through the Jug Handle and Industrial Way and come back down. It's one of the reasons that restaurants have had problems surviving on this site. It consists of two parcels. One is the site with the restaurant and the commercial building that's to the north of the restaurant and the parking, and the other is the bank site. The restaurant site has access only to Route 35 northbound, north of West Park Avenue. It has frontage also on the Jug Handle, but no access. The bank has access only to West Park Avenue via John Huss Lane, which is the small road that accesses the bank, the post office, and Heritage Village, which is further to the north. The restaurant site is Zone C3, and the bank site is Zone C2. That was a change from the 0180 zoning, which is office zoning, that was done a number of years ago. And the uses that exist and proposed are all conforming, so there's no problem there. There are some variances that are necessary. There may or may not be a variance for soil removal requirement of the ordinance, changing the grade more than 2 feet. I'll defer to Ben on that. Minimum front yard setback, again on the restaurant site, that's lots 13 and 15. The front yard setback from Route 35 is proposed to be 42 feet. The existing setback is 36.8 feet, so that's an improvement. And then the proposed setback from the Jug Handle is 8 feet, and what's existing now is 20 feet. So that's a reduction in the width of that setback. But again, the Jug Handle really is open space more than it is a street. So I don't have a big problem with that. I don't think it violates the intent of the ordinance. The maximum lot coverage, the ordinance permits 27% of buildable lot area. Again, and this is on the restaurant site, because really all the development except for the access between the two sites, the driveway and a few parking spaces, is being on the restaurant site. And the existing lot coverage is 28.1%, and they're reducing the size of the building slightly, so the new lot coverage is slightly less than that, 27.9%. It's basically the same from a functional aesthetic standpoint, but it is a little bit less. The one thing that I do want to read, because it gets a little bit complex, is the number and size of freestanding signs for the restaurant. The ordinance limits the number of freestanding signs to 1 per street frontage and limits the area of a freestanding sign to 10% of the area of the face of the wall in which it is located. And this should say facade signs, not freestanding, and I apologize for that typo there. So it's the facade signs are 10% of the area of the face of the wall on which it is located, or 150 square feet, whichever is less. It also prohibits any facade sign from extending more than 15 inches from the face of the wall on which it is attached. The plan proposes 6 signs on 3 facades. And in order to avoid confusion, since the architectural plans actually have the building reversed, showing, if you look at the architectural, what says south side is actually the north side, what says north is actually the south, same with east and west are reversed. On the north facade, facing the parking lot, has 3 signs. These signs total 202.11 square feet. These consist of an outback steak sign that is 60.7 square feet, a mural forming the outline of Australia that is 137.81 square feet, and a 3.8 square foot informational directional sign that directs persons to the takeout area. Basically, cars will park on the north side of the restaurant. There's a takeout area. They get out, go in, get their takeout, and get back into their cars and leave. And that sign directs people there. While the Australia mural and takeout signs are technically signs, they're not the types of signs that are intended to be restricted by the ordinance. The 60.7 square foot Outback Steakhouse sign conforms to the ordinance. The west facade facing Route 35 has one Outback Steakhouse sign that conforms an area. The south facade facing the jug handle has a 60.7 square foot Outback Steakhouse sign that conforms an area and 137.81 square foot Australia mural. I have no significant concerns with the proposed signage, particularly since while the murals are technically signs, they are decorative elements of the building design more than informational signs and do not add to sign clutter. With regard to the signs on three sides, Section 21-44.B.7 states if there are more than one building on a site, the planning board, pursuant to site plan review and approval, may permit signs on more than one facade of a building, including those facade signs that lack a public entrance, if the applicant demonstrates and the board finds that such additional signage promotes a community interest in facilitating the identification of a building as seen by the public. When the board approves additional identification wall signs, not more than one identification wall sign may be displayed on any one building facade. Consequently, the ordinance anticipates the board can allow additional signage if it deems it to be appropriate. Landscaped islands, most of the landscaped islands exist. The proposed site modifications provide for two new islands where the connection between the two sites is proposed. The northern island is approximately 2 feet in width and the southern island is approximately 3 feet in width. Strict compliance would result in the loss of either one or two parking spaces. Parking space width. This is for both lots. The ordinance requires parking spaces to be 10 foot wide. Some of the proposed parking spaces are 9 feet wide. There are 6 on the bank site and 5 new spaces on the restaurant site that are 9 feet wide. Strict compliance would result in the loss of one parking space or the loss of an additional existing tree. The 9 spaces are consistent. The 9 foot spaces are consistent with the existing parking spaces on the lot. So I don't have a major concern with them. The drive aisle width, the ordinance requires a drive aisle width of 24 feet for all drive aisles. There's a very small section of the drive aisle on the immediate north side of the restaurant that's 23.2 feet wide. And again, it's a minimal deviation. And when you look at it, the south side, the parking spaces face the north of the drive aisle. The south side is a walkway, and a car backing up could easily overhang that to really accommodate what would normally be a 24-foot wide aisle. So I don't have a significant concern there. They could eliminate it by reducing the width of the sidewalk there, but I think that could possibly be a minor impediment to ADA access. So I have no problems leaving that. Required landscape plan, and I had discussed this with the applicant's attorney earlier today. They are going to provide a landscape plan, and it'll be subject to my review and approval, and I will work with the Environmental Commission also to make sure it's acceptable to the Environmental Commission.
And Jim, just to jump in, we have an exhibit to show some additional proposed landscaping for you that I'm going to hand out afterwards.
Okay.
And then there's a tree location and preservation plan. In the ordinance, no trees at this point are being proposed to be removed. There's one that could possibly wind up having to be removed if it's damaged. And Ms. Krimko again will address that with the board. You have a number of trees on the site. The restaurant site requires 15 trees. Requires 13 trees, 15 trees per acre. And it's equivalent of 9 trees on the site. in my report, I say there may be room for 2 additional trees. I think there's probably room to have the required 15 trees on the site if they redo the landscape plan. And the landscaping on the site is tired. It's old, it's tired, and it does need refurbishing. And considering where the site is in the township, I think it's a good idea, but it's very nice that they're willing to try and redo the whole landscape plan.
Okay.
The only other issue is the number of parking spaces, and again, as it's presented right now with the uses that exist on the restaurant site, it conforms to the number of spaces. However, the uses in the commercial building don't. One of them is a furniture store, which has a 1 to 500 requirement, and if that were replaced with a typical 1 to 200 retail use, or a medical office that was 1 to 150, there would be a variance required on the restaurant site. And the way the ordinance is structured, they could actually provide cross easements between the 2 sites, so that the 2 sites could function with regard to parking as one site and provide an adequate amount of parking should that northern building be converted to another use, which is probably a good idea. Keeps them from having to come back to the board.
So in summary, you don't see the current parking lot allocation as problematic today?
The current one is not
but
problematic.
today.
It's whether they change the northern building, if one of those businesses goes out and they have to have another use come in, rather than have them come back for a variance, they do have the available parking on the adjacent side.
Okay.
We had the opportunity to speak with Jim a few times before this, and we are because we have the cross access. There will be a cross access agreement anyway between the 2 properties, and we're also going to do a cross access and parking easement agreement. So that way, when we go in, should the front building get re-tenanted and it's with a higher parking requirement, the zoning officer can actually count the parking on both lots. And when you count the parking on both lots according to Jim's counts, we would comply even with the straight retail.
Yeah, and the other point is, when I looked at that, the bank itself has the highest parking requirement in the ordinance, so the most restrictive. So even if that were changed to a medical office, the parking would be remain the same in terms of its requirement.
So
Okay.
we can stipulate, if the board approves this, it will be subject to us providing a cross-access and parking easement agreement that I'm sure Mark would review.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind.
Thanks.
Anybody have any questions for Jim before we move on to Bennett?
Yeah, just what wall is the mural going to be on? Which way is it facing?
One on the north side, one on the south side.
So there will be 2 Australias?
Yes.
We have color renderings,
Yeah.
Mr. DeFiglia, that will provide. We gave them to Amy, but we do have them to pass out to
Okay.
everybody.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Yep.
Jim, what's the concern with the 8-foot setback on the jug handle? Because I mean, to go from a 20-foot setback to an 8-foot that's pretty significant close to traffic. I mean, that's from
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a big concern. It's close to the traffic, but 8 feet back, it's from the property line, not from the curb.
Okay.
So it's farther back, and maybe we can have testimony as to what that distance is from the
Okay.
curb.
The right of way is significant.
Okay.
So we're actually set back much further.
It was hard to see on the
Yeah.
drawing, so
And
that's
we're
why I wanted to get
also
some
adding
clarification.
landscaping in that area.
Perfect.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Bennett.
Thank you. So I don't have too many concerns. A couple things in my report. There were some parking spaces that were shorter than they should have been. Some as low as 16 feet. Most of those are on the next to the furniture store. But because there's kind of a shared parking, I noted it in my report. The applicant has provided electronic charging station parking spots. They provided 3. My calculation says they should provide 4, so I think that should be provided. With regards to stormwater management, there's an existing stormwater basin on site. I'd just like a little testimony on the functionality of that basin and whether there are going to be any improvements to that. With regards to lighting, the applicant's providing some new lights. There is some minor light spillage on the neighboring site to the north. Just get a little testimony on that. There are some mature trees on that side, so I don't think it's really that big of a concern. And then I know Jim touched on it before, the tree that is located near the bank parking. I know the Environmental Commission made note of that as well. So we'd like to just hear some testimony on how that's going to be protected and whether any parking spaces need to be removed in order to protect that.
Okay, good.
Bennett, just one question to Bennett. Jim had said he was leaving it to you as to whether the soil removal variance was necessary or
Oh,
not.
We'll have testimony on that.
I don't think it is. Looking at the location where they are traversing or connecting the two parking lots, I don't see the need for that.
Okay.
One other thing that I didn't mention before is there's a stormwater easement in between the two sites. There's a manhole right near where they're putting the access between the two parking lots. Just some testimony on that, how that's going to be protected and whether or not it's going to affect the easement at all.
Okay, so you have your list of the things you want to make sure are covered, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Anybody have anything else for Bennett? No? Okay, Jim and Bennett, thanks. Okay, Ms. Krimko.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. And before I move in these exhibits and pass them out, I just want to quickly address high level some of the things that Jim had indicated. First, as I indicated, we're going to add additional landscaping and it would be subject to review and approval by Jim. We are not proposing to take down any trees. Contrary to the Environmental Commission report, they were questioning about removing trees for the construction of the basin. I don't know that they may not have realized that it's an existing basin that we're not making any changes to. So all of those trees in the area of the basin are remaining. As you're here through the testimony, the tree where the access is going there is no issue there, and we're not putting any parking spots there. We have it shown on the survey, and it is not being removed. The one tree that Jim talked about was the one close to the jug handle, where there was a discussion based on another application. We wanted to be as upfront as possible now, because you never know what happens during construction. What I had indicated to Jim was we're going to protect it, we're going to stay outside of its drip area, but God forbid in the event something happened to it, we would stipulate now on the record that we would replace it with the equivalent caliper through multiple trees on the site, subject to his review. I'm trying just to look ahead so we're not coming back to the board saying we had an issue and here's what happened.
Good, thanks.
As you're going to hear from the testimony, we're not proposing to remove any trees. So with all of that, I'm just going to read through this real quick and then I'll hand them out and we'll let Matt get started. A7 is an aerial map exhibit by Dynamic Engineering dated 3/27/23. A8 is an aerial overlay also by Dynamic 3/27/23. A9 is a site plan rendering dated 3/27/23, and as you hear through the testimony, it's through this exhibit that we addressed some of the comments already, and Matt will pass it out. I'm sorry, we'll go through it. And A10 are sample architectural elevations in color that we had sent via email to Amy, and it just shows very clearly which elevation has what. And what I'd like to...
Well, I think I already marked in the architectural.
No, it's not part of that. It's an additional exhibit.
Corrected one.
It's different than this?
Yes, so you didn't mark in the right ones. You didn't mark in the architectural plans. Those are the color rendereds.
Okay.
Of the architectural plans are a black and white set.
Okay. I didn't even see this.
Do you guys want copies of these? Or no?
Sure.
So what I'm gonna do, if it's okay with you, Mr. Duffy, I'm gonna hand them and have you pass them down. Sure, I got one for
Got it.
With that, I'd ask that Mr. Sharrow sworn.
Yes.
This very testimony you're about to say the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thanks.
And just take your name for the record.
Matthew Sharrow, S-H-A-R-O, professional engineer.
You're a licensed professional engineer and professional planner, and you've been accepted before this board and various other boards, not only in Ocean, but throughout the state as same?
That's correct. The zoning board, the board, all the surrounding townships in the area, properties.
Okay, great. You're accepted. Thank you.
So, Matt, as the expert here, and I'd ask you to take the mic and try not to make it as Sam did when you do it. referencing the exhibit that we moved in. I love how the engineers can never figure this out. Okay. Walking through the exhibits and referencing them, why don't you explain to the board what's existing, what's proposed, and let's take particular note with regard to the setback to the actual roadway when we get to the jug handle.
Sure, so this is aerial map exhibit A7, thank you. So in the center of the exhibit is the properties in question. 777 West Park Avenue is the existing bank lot, and 2105 Route 35 is the existing restaurant, furniture store, and dentist office. That's along Route 35. It's located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Route 35 and West Park Avenue. To the north is the Salvation Army store and donation center. To the east is the U.S. Post Office. To the south is West Park Avenue with some commercial uses beyond. And to the west is Route 35 with some commercial uses beyond. Current access to the site is off Route 35 is a right-in, right-out only. So heading northbound, you can get in and you can get out back northbound. Along West Park, you enter off of, just make sure I have the right, John Huss Lane, which is between the existing bank and the post office. That's a full movement onto West Park Avenue. And then off John Huss Lane is a full movement access from the bank. As stated before, the existing restaurant, lot that's a majority in question tonight is C3 general commercial zone, and the bank lot is C2 highway commercial zone. There is, as stated, was a existing 20-foot wide stormwater easement that runs through the site. It basically runs essentially along the property lines, between the two property lines of the two sites, and I can point it out on the more zoomed in exhibit I have here. But there is a manhole that is going in.
Why don't you grab it since we already moved it in?
Sure. So this is exhibit A9, the colored render. I'll just hit this for 2 seconds. So that drainage easement runs through the center of the two uses right here, the two dash lines right through here, and then basically up the property line in north fashion. As your board engineer stated, there is a manhole that's located in the new cross-access driveway between the two sites. That will just have to be protected during construction and then reset at grade when the pavement's installed.
And while we're talking about it, the only real construction where there's a potential for changing grade would be in that access. Are we changing grade 2 feet or more?
It's very, very close because there's it's a 2-foot drop between the two sites. It's 1.9 feet. I don't know if it's going to end up being 2 feet in the end because there's not enough spot shots to tell. So that's wwhy we put it on there.
That's fine.
So we would ask for the variance as it relates to that, and that's just to have the proper slope between the driveway?
Correct,
And it
between the
won't-
two lots.
And the purpose for that being in the ordinance is to ensure that there's no negative drainage impact by change of grade. This isn't the type of change of grade that the ordinance is concerned about, is it?
No, and it's very minimal when you think about it between the two driveways.
You're asking for the variance?
Yes, just to be sure, so it doesn't go an inch wrong.
So,
Okay.
really, the intent of the ordinance is to keep too much fill from either being removed from the site or being brought to the site to protect the road system. And anything here would be negligible.
So and I just want to point out the setback variance to the jug handle, and I apologize, it's probably hard to see on this zoomed out version of the aerial. The restaurant is located, just north or just to the top of the jug handle. Jug handle's wrapping around the intersection on the exhibit here in the center. That's where that existing 20-foot setback is from the building to the jug handle property. That's where all if you hit that jug handle, which I know everybody in this room has, that's where all their refrigerator equipment, their AC units, their condensers, they're all sitting basically right at that between the property line and that 8-foot mark that we're going to talk about in proposed conditions. So in existing conditions, it's not open, landscape space. There is improvements within that setback area already.
Matt, more importantly, how many feet is there between our property line and the actual roadway of the jug handle?
8.
So we're actually going to be set back 16 feet from the jug handle.
Correct. When I get to the proposed, I'll point out
Okay.
that it's 8.3, but yeah, 8.
And also, it's just at one corner based on the orientation, which we'll go through.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out where that existing deficiency is or variances, and that in that area is all that refrigerator units and the compressors and the
And we're removing all of that, and that's going to be all cleaned up and landscaped.
It's all being removed, cleaned up landscape, which I'll get to in
A few minutes, hopefully.
I said second.
Oh, all right.
All right, I want to just really quick go through this one, just because it gives a better shot of what's being proposed tonight, and then I'll get into some detail on what's being proposed. So overall, what's being proposed is to raise the 5,100 square foot restaurant that was located in this area north of the jug handle, replace it with a 4,936 square foot outback restaurant, create the cross access between the two properties here in the darker gray hatch, and then add 7 new parking spaces in that area as cross access. Then the access points to Route 35 and to John Huss Lane will remain the same. So there's no change in access points. Really the only change is removing the existing building, putting back a new similar sized building, similar sized parking, and then creating that cross access and adding some parking there as well.
And you said how many new spaces? 4?
There's 7 new spaces on the bank lot, yep.
So just on the so the access point is that proposed is where that 200-foot thing notation is. Is that the access point?
If you look actually,
There's a better.
yeah, if you look at A9, it's actually darkened on A9, which is the color rendered plot plans.
Yep, I got you 9 up there.
Okay. Why don't you point out that you have the dark pavement where the connection
So,
is?
this is a plan rendering. This is basically a colorized version of the site plan sheet that's in the packet in front of you. You're looking at the exhibit on the smaller side sheets there. All the lighter gray and the lighter orange and the lighter green, that's all existing to remain. So the proposed is the darker gray, that's asphalt. The darker green areas that are surrounding the building, surrounding that new asphalt that's between the two properties. And then obviously the darker orange here and the darker gray concrete for the new restaurant building. As stated before, overall for the restaurant and the retail lot, we have 92 parking spaces. And then for the bank lot, we have 41 proposed parking spaces. The parking spaces.
Can you just go over that again? 92 parking spaces overall?
92 parking spaces for the retail and the restaurant lot.
Okay.
Lots 13 through 15.
And
Is that on?
No.
We have to start all over.
Now it sounds on.
Sounds like it's fun.
Hello.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, just
All right.
I said
That's what he meant.
92 for the restaurant, retail, and how many for the bank?
41 for the bank.
41 for the bank. And how many are going to be I'm sure I'm jumping ahead, but the electric?
So there's currently shown 3 on the plan, but we'll add a 4th to meet the statute.
All right. And you locate them where?
Everbenz tells us to.
So right now they're located kind of in, the bottom corner of the property away from, the bigger portion of the parking lot.
Thank you.
So as stated, the existing parking stalls are 9 by 18. Some are smaller. Those are located back in this area next to the loading zone for the furniture store, where the shorter stalls are located. 16 and a half to 17 feet. Some of those stalls are.
Those are existing, and they're not really proximate to an entrance, so they're typically either unused or for because it's in the loading area, they'd be employee parking.
Correct. So the new ones that we're proposing along the front of the restaurant as well as the ones at the cross access. They're 9x18 with the hairpin striping. There will be a loading zone adjacent to the restaurant, 16.9 feet, striped area to the east of the restaurant. While I'm there, the little gray, odd-shaped area next to the restaurant, to the east side of the restaurant, is the trash enclosure. So that trash enclosure is an 8-foot-high wall with 2 dumpsters inside, and then that also houses some of their other equipment that they use, like CO2 units, stuff like that. So that's where that is, fully enclosed, access through a man door, and then access into the store.
Okay, while we're over in that area, the plans that were submitted did not show landscaping, but you're actually showing that entire area to have shrubbery up to the property line. Obviously, we can't plant in the right of way.
That is correct. So we're going to plant some shrubs so there's a sidewalk off the south side of the building. That's for access from the emergency exit. So we're going to plant some shrubs between that sidewalk and the property line, and then all the way along the rest of the sidewalk to screen that trash enclosure wall, as well as the wall.
Just a question on the motion from the, what is that, Huss Road? Is that right?
Right.
John Huss Road, into that bank and then into the other parking area. Is there any concern about that movement? It's like a,
I have similar. I know where you're going. The similar concern is that it's going to be instantly used as a cut through
yeah.
off West Park Avenue to avoid any traffic on that jug handle. Is there any consideration for either speed bumps or some other kind of design deterrent to limit that cut through? Is that what you were? Is that where you were going, Jeff?
Yeah, I was going with cut through.
Definitely
Also, when they're cutting through, I was getting more to the second level. When they're cutting through, it's typically like to get through. It's like they're driving. They're not.
Right.
They're not. When you're looking for a spot, you're kind of like going slow looking for a spot. When you're just driving, you're driving through.
All right, so the good news is, as I said, we have our traffic engineer here. So as much as I trust Matt to address that, we have Justin here, so we're going to let him address it. And I think, we'll be open to anything, but I think he can address that. And also, if you just look at the configuration where it comes in, there is no straight shot. The concern may have been more if you could come in and go straight through and then go straight through to our site. You actually have to come in, make a right, go around the turn, and go around. So it isn't really like a loop road or a straight shot. You have to come in and turn and navigate your way through.
So I can point that out on Exhibit A9. So what Ms. Krimko's saying is that, if this driveway would have come straight through and go like that, concern. But now you have to come in, you have to turn, you have to go through a little S turn again, and then through the parking lot. It's not really worth it. But Mr.
No, I think we gotta see that. I guess we're concerned about the bad driver who thinks it's an obstacle course, and wants to speed through it.
It's not like there's a whole bunch of high school kids that come off West Park Avenue
Yeah,
every day.
right.
They're on 2:15, 2:30.
Right.
I don't think they're going home that way. I mean, they shouldn't be going to Eatontown, right? So
So did you want to continue with
We'll
your?
let Justin address that. Justin's taking notes as to everything he needs to hit.
So I just wanted to point out the setback variance to the jug handle. So obviously the orange is the building. You have an 8-foot from the building corner to the property line, then you have another 8.3 feet from the property line to the curb line. So you have a total of 16.3 feet there.
And Matt, also, I'd indicated it's just that corner, because the building is parallel to the highway, that's only at the closest pinch point. The actual facade of the building goes further back as the jug handle turns, and at the let me get the direction right, at the southeast corner of the building, we're 24 feet from the property line, right?
Correct. So going back to Exhibit A9, the other corner along Route 35 and the jug handle is actually 24.4 feet from the jug handle. So it really is just that pinch point. And that's why we're going to add some shrubs there, just to kind of have a little screen buffer. And again, that area, if you looked at an existing survey or you drove it, is all that refrigerator units, all the mechanical equipment, all the AC units that the current restaurant uses.
Two questions. In your opinion, is this going to be an aesthetic improvement over what's there today?
Yes, for the two simple reasons I just stated, the landscaping and getting rid of all that equipment off the ground.
And secondly, is it a better zoning alternative, in your opinion, to have the building actually front on the highway as opposed to address the jug handle in a parallel fashion?
Yeah, so obviously, fronting on the highway is where you want the building to front. The jug handle is, it's a jug handle. So
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
as far as lighting go, there was two comments in the board engineer's review. We can eliminate both comments. One comment was about a little bit of spillage.
We're not going to eliminate them, we're actually going to address them and comply.
Yes, we're going to address them and comply.
I knew
We'll
what you
eliminate
meant.
the
I
comment.
knew what you meant.
Can you get with the program?
Eliminate the comment. So, the two comments, one was spillage onto the north property line and the jug handle. We can adjust the lighting to eliminate those issues. And then the other one was a 25-foot high light pole instead of a 24-foot high light pole. We're just going to lower it down to 24 feet to address those two comments. I think I went through a little bit of the landscaping already, but I also want to mention, so we have the landscaping on the south side of the building, but also what we're going to do, there's, if you've been to the site, there's a big open spot between, there's a little landscape spot at the edge of the jug handle. Then once you go up further south towards the furniture building, there starts to be some more landscaping. So we're going to add a couple more trees throughout that area just to kind of add another landscape buffer between in that open area just to free it up a little bit.
And again, we didn't give Jim the benefit of having this to review in advance. Any landscaping we propose, we would agree would be subject to his review and approval.
Of course.
And obviously, the tree locations are because of what has been so unsuccessful down the past. We want it to be successful, so we want to put it in a way that we're increasing the tree canopy, but also not blocking the view of the retail and or the restaurant. So we'll work with Jim to resolve that.
Correct. And stormwater purposes, there's de minimis increase in impervious coverage here. It's going to function as it is today. The existing basin, I was out there today. It'll be cleaned up by the applicant. Prior to anything going on there, there's some debris and stuff in there, so they'll clean it up.
So Bennett, is that good enough for you?
Yeah, that's fine. There should be an existing stormwater operation and maintenance manual that belongs to the site. So that will, I'm sure, says that it has to be maintained by cleaning it out every so often. So that should be fine, and the continued maintenance of the basin goes along with it.
Okay, cool.
Before we go on, just one more thing. Before you go, we had indicated, well, I had represented that we're going to preserve all the trees on the site, and there's no intention to take them down. Is that what the plans show? And in your expert opinion, is that feasible?
Correct. Yeah, and it definitely is feasible. There are a couple trees that are in close proximity to where we're doing work, but I feel like they're mature trees that have a great root system that in the ground already, and we're not regrading around the trees. We're not impacting the trees. So I do believe that they'll be able to stay intact during construction.
And the concern with the Environmental Commission, you want to point out the tree that's closest to where that connection is and just confirm that it won't be disturbed?
Sure. So there's a tree. It's a little lighter green just south of that connection that is shown on the render there, and that's the tree that's in question right now. I believe that again. We're not really grading anywhere over it. That parking lot's staying essentially the same grade that it is today. So I don't believe that any of the roots will be impacted or that tree will be impacted.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's move on to the architectural.
Real quick, this is, I believe, Exhibit A10.
Yes, good memory.
Yes. There's actually two exhibits as part of this. They're stapled together for you. So the first page of A10, this is essentially a colorized version of what was submitted in your packet. The packet was black and white, so we just wanted to put a little color to it. It's an EFIS building with some accents of concrete board that makes it have some texture to it, as well as some stone veneer throughout the elevation. There's a lot of glass windows, typical Outback, a lot of glass windows, completely transparent, none of the blacked out windows. There are some signs, which I'll get to in a second, on the elevations. I'll go through each elevation one at a time. There is a parapet along the sides in the front of the building that will screen the mechanical equipment on top of the roof. So that's good. That parapet has a metal coping that goes along the top, just to give it a little bit more architectural flair. And then there's aluminum canopies, or eyebrows, that are above some of the windows and above the doors. That's a quick glimpse on the. I'm not going to go through all the color palettes and stuff. You can see it. It's just a nice mix of maroons, browns, and tan.
Can you just, so I can orient myself,
Yep.
that one on the bottom that is the rear.
I'm gonna go through each one of them.
Okay, good.
All right. So I'll go through top, bottom, and then top, bottom. So this one right here, this is the side looking from the parking lot. So to orient everybody, going back to Exhibit A9. So that's that side right there from the parking lot. Okay. So, and you can see there's that little takeaway sign that's on that board, more of a directional sign to let you know where the takeaway carryout is. And there's also the mural, the Australian mural that is on here that Mr. Higgins talked about. And then there's your Outback Steakhouse that's above the doors under this parapet.
And where's actually the door into the restaurant? And then the back, we just have that one side, and that's actually facing the jug handle.
Yeah, so this one down here, real quick, that's facing the jug handle. So this is this is not facing the jug handle.
Oh, sorry.
This is facing
Facing the bank.
Yeah, that's facing the bank right here.
Yeah.
So that's that's how your dumpster enclosure and your outdoor attached refrigeration unit.
Now, quick question.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't see any details of the facade signs. How far do they extend out from the building itself? Do you know?
I can get that answer for you, but it's not 15 inches.
Yeah, okay. But and then the Australia sign extends out more than 3 inches, right?
Correct.
So so the board knows there's a technical variance necessary there. If it extends out more than 3 inches, it has to be at least 10 feet above the base of the building. And I think that's like 8 feet rather than 10 feet. But that's really not, that requirement wasn't intended to apply to facade signs that are flat on the facade. It was really intended to apply to signs that stand out and perpendicular to the building. So I don't have a problem
Like the blade
with it.
signs
Yeah,
in
blade
a
signs and
retail
so
that
on, yeah.
you're
At a shopping
walking.
center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so those are those two. Then I'll go quickly through the next two. These are probably the important ones. So the top one, that's the one that you're going to see as you come around the jug handle. So there, again, you have the Australian mural, you have the Outback Steakhouse sign, and this is your 8-foot trash enclosure wall.
And what's not shown here is all the landscaping that's going to be along that.
Yep, that would be on the plan, yep. And then the lower one, that's your front door. That's the one that you're going to be looking at from Route 35. There's a canopy over the outdoor. There's no seating area, but the outdoor waiting area. And then this is the little side door over here to the takeaway area. All right.
Can I interrupt you real quick? So there's no outdoor seating for the restaurant?
Nope.
Okay.
And then let me just go through the signage actually hit the signage real quick, but I can kind of just reiterate what Mr. Higgins said.
I think what's important is that the Outback, our actual sign identifying it, even including the Outback and the steakhouse and the little mountains on top, is within the ordinance requirement.
Correct. So if you take away the mural and the takeout that are not really advertising the signs.
Okay.
So I think we hit that all there.
Any questions for?
That's all I got.
So you may have answered this question already, but what is the capacity, the max capacity of the Outback Steakhouse?
It's there's 187 seats. The max occupancy is 200 people.
And is that a liquor license bar?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions for this individual? No?
I do have one more question.
Yeah,
Jeff.
okay, yep.
So I read something along the way. I don't know how you hear half truths on the internet. This is is this a true Outback Steakhouse, or was something about a blooming onion naming the name of the place as a
No,
blooming
this
onion?
is Outback Steakhouse.
It's
So
straight up Outback
Straight
Steakhouse.
up. So what David Willis
There you go.
was using the infamous blooming onion, which we all know you get at a steakhouse, as I guess a tagline to get people to read it. But no, this is going to be
Okay.
steakhouse. Now, again, it's being approved like that. So that's what's being proposed. That's what the signage is. Yes, and I have a representative from the actual Outback Steakhouse sitting behind me. He flew in special for this.
And
All the way
I
from
don't wanna,
Australia.
I don't want to. I don't want to. But it may have been confused with the brand that owns Outback is Bloomin' Brand.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a upscale version or a down. You know what
This
I'm
is
saying?
the upscale version.
This is it.
Mr. Fisher.
What the article said, I can tell you what the article said. They said there are different versions of the restaurant, that models of the restaurant, and the article said this was the Bloomin' Onion version model. That's what the article said, versus another type of model of the restaurant. That's what the article said. I'm not saying it's true, but that's what the article
The
said.
blooming onion is the sort of the symbol of
blooming onion?
Outback.
Oh no, we know that, but
Okay, all
but
right,
just saying
okay,
what the
okay. I
article-
got it. We can move on. Okay.
All right,
Anything
thank
else?
you.
No.
Listen, as a vegetarian, I'm really into the blooming onion.
So why don't we get to? By the way, thank you for
Thank you.
all the information you gave us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, technically, you can open him to the public, but I see all the public is with us.
Correct.
Yes, but I think we were going to open up to the public after we've heard all the
Oh,
testimony
is that
from
what
everybody,
you're doing now?
right?
Okay.
You can do whatever you want, but is there anyone here from the public on this application? No. So, Mr. Chairman, I would just note for the record there is no one here from the public, so there's no need to open to the public
Okay,
because there's no one here. If someone does arrive, we will make note of that and we will offer them an opportunity to speak.
Okay. So I think now we probably want to talk about the traffic, right? Okay. Thanks.
His socks are as interesting as his tie. I can
Let's see the socks. Oh, very. Yeah.
The yellow submarine.
All right, so let me just swear you in. Do you swear your testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And just state your name for the record.
Justin Taylor, Taylor.
And you are a licensed engineer, state of New Jersey?
I am.
And you're
Thank you.
accepted as an expert in the field of traffic engineering by the New Jersey Department of Transportation, by the courts, and by various boards throughout the state.
That's correct.
Okay, we'll accept your testimony.
Thank you very much. So I heard really only one specific question regarding the traffic. Give a little background. We have applied to the NJDOT. We have received our letter of no interest, showing that this doesn't create a significant increase in traffic and that the driveways do not need to be modified. But really the concern that I heard was the cut through. And it's always a challenge once you create a connection of two streets that there is that potential for cut through. I think Ms. Krimko hit a pretty good point with this, is the circuitous nature that we have through this site lends itself to prohibiting that cut through already.
Not prohibiting it, but at least keeping cars slowing
Discouraging it, yes, because you were doing multiple turns through this, through the bank facility and then winding your way through the new cross access, and then you need to even make a right turn and a left turn to get down to the Route 35 access point. As I'm scribbling and listening, I think one of the things we do need to install is a stop sign and a stop bar at the new cross access point. I think the vehicles that are traveling through the bank should come to a stop and allow the free flow of traffic north-south through there, which will tend to slow people down in that moment as well. But I would note.
And where can you show us exactly where you're
Absolutely.
talking?
Yep. So I would say, in this new area that's being created, we should be installing a stop sign and a stop bar in this location, so that the north-south traffic along the eastern property line has the right-of-way, and vehicles exiting that new cross access would be required to stop. What I did have a chance to is measure what you're talking about in this straightaway, which is the only point that's straight, is about 200 feet. And so I'm not going to tell you the high school kid is not going to get on the gas and do it, but most people are going to, you're not even going to be accelerating, you're not even going to hit 20 miles an hour in that stretch. And further, we do have the resale establishments that are on here, and the parking maneuvers start to create friction of vehicles traveling along there too. So I don't think there's any need of vertical measures or something like that to really slow people down.
Can I make it?
Sure, of course, yeah.
So a point of historical, point is that back in the day, you used to be able to cut through there, and you could come on out there. This is going back way back.
Don't look at me, just because you know. Just because you know when I was born.
So the truth is, it really was a cut through, and the traffic on West Park at that time was significantly decreased. Now the traffic on West Park is significantly increased. I can't tell you that people are not going to do it. I can imagine that they would. I do like the stop sign. I think that's a great idea. We may want to consider, it could be almost like you have to think about the future here, but because I can imagine everybody who's trying to get to that parkway, everybody who's going to try to get north on 35, especially in the summertime when we start to significantly back up on West Park, people might just say, hey, watch this. Because in high school, we did do that circuitous route, and it did exist. And it was actually a private road, I think, at the time, but we all did it. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that.
I think one of the other things that could potentially be done is granting Title 39 through here. And what that allowed you to do is the police can then enforce the fact. If they're watching people physically cut through, it'll enable them to actually ticket those people for making the illegal maneuver. And I think you get one or two people that gets that ticket, and you're gonna start to discourage the people.
It'll hit Facebook, and people are going to be more careful.
So
Yeah.
I have a question. So I mean, like a speed table, a speed bump. I mean, what are the options here? Because I especially in the summer, I know this is going to happen. So I mean, I think that I don't know if I speak for everyone here, but is there something that could mitigate this?
Well, I think you said the stop sign would mitigate it
But
by forcing the stop in between.
Right, but let's say it's off hours and the parking lot's not full and someone's pulling through the lot very rapidly.
What about some rumble strips?
You could do rumble strips. We shy away from speed bumps nowadays. One, they do major damage to the undercarriage of the car. Two, they're a plowing nightmare.
And they also interfere with emergency access. Yeah.
That's correct. So there is the potential for what we call speed humps. They're between 12 and 14 feet long. I don't know if one will fit in this area. Typically, we wouldn't put them next to a parking space either. So there's not a whole lot of opportunity through this stretch. But there's potentially in this new cross-access area a little bit of room. I don't know if I can talk to Matt about whether or not we can stretch the parking spaces around. Do you have a through here?
What about at the little curve, the little?
If we pulled something, them.
No. He said.
I think it's the straight shot. It's going to be the problem.
The straight shot.
Yeah, I think that's where people are going to
Here, but I don't know that that's really an issue.
So the turn in is going to slow people down. The right turn to go around the back is going to slow people down. This is where you start to have that flow as you come through the two of them, which is why I was talking about the stop sign here. My thought is if you're going to look at something like that, it would end up in this location as well, because again, there's a physical barrier, a vertical deflection that's gonna slow people down. Like I said, typically we do them about 12 feet long, and I think there's room in this area to fit something like that. If that's really what the board's.
What I can suggest is that we'll work with Ben. I think he hears exactly what you're concerned, and we'll work with Ben and our engineers to come up with the most we can do there and still have it functional.
Okay, yeah. So Ben, just to be clear, the big concern is not giving people momentum for that straight shot. Okay, that's actually the big concern. If you do it too early, it doesn't help. If you do it too late, it doesn't help, right? So, yeah, we don't want to have the straight shot going 35, 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think the stop sign definitely has merit, and I think that some other form may be able to provide additional protection. So I can work with the applicant. We can come up with
Okay.
Just real quick. Yeah, I mean, my real main concern is safety at this point, because I think what happens is when you cut that light, your first reaction is, now I've got to beat that light. So you're going to try to gun it through that last section there to try to get out to 35 before everybody starts making those turns. So that's the only concern, because when it happens, it's a huge flow of traffic coming from the westbound side onto 35 north, and then the right, and then the people on the east side of 35 are going to all start to come in there. So, yeah, I think that's the only thing, because once you start that momentum, you're like, I got to beat the light. So
I'm just glad that I didn't have a license yet when you were a teenager driving. Sounds like you were a menace, Mr.
I know where all the secrets were in this town. Come on.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't necessarily for the applicant, but like the West Park Avenue there is a disaster. And I believe it's because we allow people to make left turns where there shouldn't be. And I just foresee, and I know you can't as the applicant do anything, but can we restrict people from making a left-hand turn from West Park into where like the bank and the post office is, so that doesn't pile up there?
John, I was looking at that. If you do that, then anybody that's going to make that left-hand turn that's coming north on 35 or going east on West Park Avenue is going to go north on 35 at the intersection and cut through the site the other direction if they're going to either the bank, Heritage Village, or the post office. That's going to happen anyway. That's going to cut down on those left-hand turns. But I don't think you want to. I don't think you can legally restrict
Well,
it.
what I was going to say is, because John Huss is a roadway, any changes to the configuration of the roadway, I guess you'd speak to your mayor.
Right, I understand. I again, I
No, I know,
understand,
you
but
did
I'm just
say-
saying, like, you know, because, I mean, this is essentially an urban jug handle that we did at 32 acres. I mean, in all essence of the word. So I just know West Park Avenue going both directions out of all of those, out of your office, Dr. Fisher, where you're over there. My son now screams at that intersection because I've obviously screamed enough of people making all these crazy turns. So I would just ask that the council and the rest of the engineers maybe relook at, you know, I would hope that this is successful and that there are people who want to visit this and that we're going to have people who are going to this location, but to relook at that kind of West Park area there and try to figure out some better traffic moves because it 3 to 6, it's just a, you know, whole slew of mess. So
So West Park Avenue is a county road, and I know that the applicant submitted to the county for review, and the county did provide some comments and showed that there is a master plan of widening on West Park Avenue, which includes adding some lanes. So likely, you know, some of these issues that you're talking about will be addressed when the county does that work. Now, I don't know that there is a time frame for that at this point, but that is something that was.
I do know that the county got a lot of infrastructure money that's coming down from the federal government, so maybe it would behoove them to look at that if they're watching the tape.
That's a
Okay. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
Jumping onto what John was talking about, though, I know that there is a relatively popular bus stop on the southeastern corner there, and I'm looking at these maps, and I see there's a crosswalk to the jug handle. How does someone who does not have a car who wants to eat or work at the restaurant get there safely? Because I'm also looking at the sidewalk ending over by the post office. Is there a way to get there without?
You mean from the bus stop?
Yeah, from the bus stop or from Oakhurst?
There is a crosswalk.
Yeah, I know. It goes to the jug handle, but then where? Where are they crossing out of that jug handle to?
You're talking about to get to the Outback?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I would do. I'd walk through the bank site.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'd walk down John Huss and walk through the bank site.
So there's a marked crosswalk that's for the Heritage Village that has flashing lights that the county has installed.
Gotcha.
Which is going to be east of where you're looking. And
Yeah,
that is well, and there was some conversation about moving that a couple feet here and there, but that was installed by the county.
Okay. But there's no sidewalk from that crosswalk further west on West Park, right? You'd have to go up into that parking lot and through.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything there.
All right.
Okay, anybody have anything else they want to ask or?
I have one question. Is there any wayfinding signage when you come in near the post office for the restaurant?
There was not, no.
Okay, is that something, I mean, I'm just, want this restaurant to be
We don't
successful.
own that street, so we can't really put any signage there, but I imagine that it's going to be, people will know as, people will be as adept at navigating the streets as Councilman Fisher, and they will figure out the shortest route to get there.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else from anybody here? Okay, since there's nobody in the audience,
Make a positive motion.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Did you?
Or do we have to close the public meeting?
I think we have to.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
There's no
Okay.
public here.
So, John, would you like to make a motion for something?
A positive resolution that we support this.
And I will second it.
Okay.
It's a big night for me.
Don't forget it next time, all right?
Mr.
I
Duffy
made-
made the motion.
I made the
Mr.
motion,
Gustiglia
yes.
seconded.
And we're gonna pick Miss Krimko
And
up
Miss
off the
Wright-
floor, all right?
Miss Krimko, shut her jaw.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Great, thank you. Can I get a motion to, I don't believe there's any more things here. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion, second?
Second.
Okay. We're closed.
Thank you. Good job.
All right. Look forward to the grand opening.